Good evening, everybody. Uh, it's like it's a long time since I've been here live, but we're back with a real star amongst us, a performer who's been in performed in some of the best comedy locations in Los Angeles, and I'm sure elsewhere, but I just happen to know Los Angeles because I used to live around the corner from the Comedy Store. Um, it's a pleasure for me to welcome tonight Kelly Spillman. Hello,
I'm
Kelly.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we are delighted to host you. Um, we have all kinds of connections, as I understand it, not just Dr. Mark, who I'm sure will ask some nice questions in the chat window. I don't know how you came across Dr. Mark. Maybe you came across Andrew. Maybe it was Andrew you came across and not Dr. Mark. Do you know who Andrew is?
No, this is what a small world it is. Mark is a
Yes.
neighbor of
Oh,
someone in my support group that I'm talking about tonight in the show. So it is a very small
oh.
world.
Well, you got to go visit, and then you get to meet Andrew. Andrew is a Waggage Flame therapy dog, and we're making him our um a mascot of ANCAN because we love him so much. He has this interpreter that goes along with him everywhere, you see. So wherever you find Andrew, you usually find Dr. Mark as well.
Wonderful.
Because he's one of the few people that understands Wolf. But whereabouts do you live? What part of Los Angeles?
So I'm in Westwood, right by UCLA.
Yes, we know that. That's a bit of a hike to. That's a bit of a hike for you to get to College of the Canyons, isn't it?
It is, yes, it is. So I do have a commute, but usually I'm going against traffic, so that's not so bad.
This is true. This is true. You are usually going against traffic. Yes, I have my Los Angeles t-shirt, so I do know what you're talking about. So, um, and so it was this friend that you're going to talk about who introduced you to Dr. Mark and to Ancan.
Yes.
Um, let's just talk a little bit. We'll talk about your situation after your performance. But let's talk a little bit about before your situation. How were you doing comedy before you found out that you were living with cancer?
I was. So I'm a little unique in that I started stand up pretty late. I did not even start it until age 38, which in comedy years is 1,000 years old. So I
Yeah.
was in Atlanta. I didn't know anyone that did comedy, and I kind of stumbled into it and then just fell in love and did very well and kind of moved up quickly from like host to feature. And so at age 40 moved to LA to, try to pursue this. But it is interesting because, most people start like at 18, 19, 20. And so I definitely started much later than what is usual for comedy.
Yeah, I think it must have been on NPR. Maybe it was over the weekend, and they were interviewing. Oh, I know, it was with Scott Simon. They were interviewing somebody from Second City, two guys from Second City, and they were talking about starting off in comedy and doing the stand-up, and what happens when you fail and how you learn from that, and all of that. What have you learned a lot from doing stand-up?
You do, and it's interesting because I am a psychology professor as well, and I end up using a lot of stand up as an example because sadly,
Yes.
to get amazing at stand up, you have to fail a lot, and it's so hard to stand on stage to silence when you've written these jokes and you want them. Like bombing is so painful, but that is the only way to get good. And so you learn that it's not really failure, it's just a stepping stone to getting better. And you kind of do have to honestly fail to become great. And so if you can mentally get around that, it's not easy, but that is how you get better, is through that painful bombing on stage process. And so I just think it's a valuable lesson in life. If you try something that doesn't work, keep at it, because that failure might actually make you much better.
Well, I have to acknowledge that 40 years ago, I did live literally round the corner from the Comedy Store on Miller Drive, which is like about 200 yards west and up the street that slides off a Sunset. And there were many times that in the evening I would walk down there, and people that were performing what Jay Leno, I saw Jay Leno perform many,
Yeah.
many times there in the early 80s, and a lot of other famous names, and I saw them bomb, you know. So even the best bomb, right, Kelly?
No, they do. They really do. I just went to see a show recently of someone who had the most probably successful show last year, and I just went to see him work out something new. Not to say he
Yeah,
bombed, but it was good for me to see.
yeah,
Again, even the most successful solo show performer of last year has to start over, and not everything is going to work. And it was good for me to see that as well, that it really is hard work that gets these shows to the high quality that they are. People don't just naturally
right,
have a 10 out of 10 for their 1 hour. It takes a lot of
right.
time to get there. And no matter
Now,
how good you are.
now, what was the mainstay of your material before you went through treatment?
So that is a very good question. I have always been narcissistic. I have always just talked about my life. And so
Yeah,
that's what became difficult for me, because when I got diagnosed with cancer,
yeah,
it's ridiculous to not talk about on stage that I'm fighting cancer. And so it just was kind of a natural way, because that had always been my jokes. I only talked about stuff from my own life. I'm not like a Seinfeld observational comic. And so so I continued to just write jokes about cancer, because it's what I'd always done. Just whatever was going on in my life at the time, that's what I would joke about.
Oh, so before cancer, it could have been a varied thing depending on personal relationships
Mhm.
or what you had for lunch or
Exactly. Yeah,
well, I think I don't know. I think in a sense that's what Seinfeld writes about. It's what's I mean, because so much of Seinfeld is what actually happens in New York City, you
that's
know?
true. No, you're right. I
So
didn't mean
so
to
he
say anything negative about Seinfeld.
no, because he may be watching. You never know.
You never know.
He could be watching. There could be script writers in LA watching right now. So you never know. You never know. Um, how have you found? Uh, this is a topic that really interests me because I've moved around a lot, and including to LA from the East Coast. How did you find the adjustment moving from Atlanta and the Southeast? Because you have our Southeast history. You don't sound like it. You've done a good job losing your accent, I'll tell you that. Better than me. But how did you find that adjustment from Georgia, Florida to Los
Yeah.
Angeles?
It's interesting. I they say this sometimes, when you do comedy in other cities, you kind of people kind of move up and become kind of like the big fish in a small pond. Not to imply that's what I was, but if you're in a city where there's hundreds of comics, and then you move to
Right.
LA where there's tens of thousands of
Yeah,
comics,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is a
yeah.
tough adjustment. Even just in Atlanta, there was a clear path. There were 3 comedy clubs you would host, then you try to feature, then you hope to one day be able to be a headliner. LA, it's a little murkier than that. That's not really the path of, and so, you know, the reality is that it's hard to navigate and try to figure out how to find your path among so many fish. So I'm still, 9.5 years later trying to figure that out. So
Well, it's interesting that you go straight to the comedy issue because if somebody would have asked me that question when I moved to Los Angeles, I wouldn't have related it um to my profession or my career or what I was doing. I mean, for me, I found it very difficult and a huge adjustment to come from the vibe and the ethos of the East Coast. Mind you, I'd only been living in on the East Coast for 3 or 4 years to the vibe of California and the West Coast, which was just so different. The pace was different. People, I found I had to talk to people different. They heard me different.
Hmm.
Is
I,
that
I, it's interesting. Well, number one, I lived in the South and I was very liberal growing up. And if you grow up in the South, not everyone is so liberal. So it was for me
yes.
great political wise to move to LA. But I don't know. Maybe this sounds corny, but because I wasn't a performer, I was a professor. All my friends in Atlanta were kind of traditional 9 to 5 jobs. And so to move out here, where almost everyone you meet is like a dreamer, a creative.
Yeah.
I dig that. I mean, I like optimism. I like so does the cost of this place drive me crazy? Yes. Do I hope to be able to stay here forever? Will the cost make me leave one day? Possibly. That kind of stuff does get to you. But I love the good weather. There's no humidity. Like I'm just team LA. I hope I can stay here forever. So I really love it. I really do. Um,
The cost forced me out of
yeah,
California, I'll
it
tell
may
you.
do it for me too, in all honesty. I mean, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest with you, it's just the housing cost and everything else. So I hope I can stay here. I really do. It's
Okay. Well, I think we should let you get on with your show because I got a lot to talk to you about your situation. And I don't want to go there because I don't want to spoil what you're going to do and
good.
make you give any leads. So, are you comfortable moving right into your performance?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll see you in 20.
I'll
Goodbye.
see you. I'll see you in 20. Thanks, Rick. So welcome everyone. I have always seen myself as a badass. And the only minor problem with that is that I just haven't really been seen that way by anyone who has ever met me in my entire life. Now, yes, when I worked at Subway, I did take money out of the register and I hid it under the boiled ham and tomatoes during a robbery because I did not want the perpetrators getting all of Subway's money. And we did have these free sub stickers that came in a big roll. And during the robbery, I hid the big roll of free sub stickers in the walk-in cooler because those perpetrators would have had free subs for years. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. I took my sandwich artist duties very seriously. However, I do not believe this makes me the goody two shoes that everyone has just always seen me in as my entire life. And it drives me crazy. So imagine my surprise when I meet with my new primary care physician, and the first question she asked me after looking at my blood work is, Kelly, how much heroin have you been doing? I was very confused by this and had to come clean. I've never done heroin before. I've actually never done any drug before. She said, Kelly, based on your blood work, I'm pretty sure you either have HIV or hepatitis due to your heroin use. No one has even offered me a drug before. And this lady thinks I'm like the road manager for Rolling Stones. So I told her there's no way I have HIV or hepatitis. This can't be right. And I was right. What I did have was colon cancer, and it had spread completely all over my liver. I had 15 huge tumors covering my entire liver, making me stage 4 colon cancer. Now, I'm very young. I have no family history. This was overwhelming, shocking, confusing. I didn't even know anybody with colon cancer. I knew nothing about it. And so I have been very open about my diagnosis from day one. So I let my friends and family and on social media know because I needed to learn about colon cancer. And I had no idea how lucky I am. So many friends and family members were experts on cancer. Who knew? My inbox was flooded with emails telling me how to cure my stage 4 colon cancer. No one suggested medicine of any kind. One friend said, Kelly, do not despair. My mom was told she had 3 months to live, and she ate this soup, and it saved her life. Here is the recipe. I had some follow-up questions for her. I said, wait a minute, your mom was given a death sentence and she ate soup and it saved her life. Turns out her mom had chemo, radiation, surgery, and soup. So she left out a few details. So since friends and family were of no help to me on this, I immediately made an appointment with Dr. Google. Please, please do not do this if you get bad news from a healthcare provider. The stats for stage 4 colon cancer are really horrifying. I kept seeing the same number over and over again. 80% of us die 1 to 2 years after diagnosis. And if that was accurate, that means I'm not even going to live to my 50th birthday. And so this, of course, was horrifying. And I, in that moment, said, I got to figure out how to be one of the 20 percenters. I got to figure out how to make it past 2 years. And so I joined 11 Facebook colon cancer groups, people all over the world that have colon cancer. And I read tens of thousands of posts trying to figure out how can I be that 20 percenter. I call it doing my own research. My boyfriend calls it unhealthy behaviors. But I really was just determined to read anything I could on colon cancer. And I'm glad I read all the posts. It's very clear that if you want to beat stage 4 colon cancer, the only way you can beat it is to get a surgeon to cut it out of you. That chemo cannot cure you. That chemo can shrink tumors, but you have to get a surgeon to take it out. Okay, let's do this. So I meet up with my oncologist for the first time. My first surgeon get cut out of me. And Dr. Kubalanza did this. And I said, okay, how can I be a 20 percenter? How can I live past 2 years? What do you know? And she did this. And she said, Kelly, your only option is to go on chemo. And hopefully this will improve the quality of your life for the time that you have left. And so I did start a very aggressive chemo regimen. The side effects are as horrible as some of you know or have heard. I only have 20 minutes, which doesn't even give me time to cover. But I was still wanting surgery. And so I did these grueling chemos. Now, here's what's interesting about Dr. Kubalanza. She was like the world's worst relaxation therapist. She would say things to me in a calming way, but if you listened to what she said, it was pretty horrifying. Things like, Kelly, if you find that you cannot swallow, make sure to get to the ER within 5 minutes. Wait, 5 minutes? Wait, what? Kelly, if you find your blood pressure skyrockets, just head on down to the ER immediately. Wait, why would my blood pressure skyrocket? You most likely are experiencing cardiac arrest. So as you can imagine, this was very confusing. One thing I do appreciate though, many people in my condition where their liver's covered, they're stage 4, were told by their oncologists, you probably have about 6 months. You need to get your affairs in order. And I am so happy Dr. Kubalanza did not do that to me. I'm so grateful. However, because I know that our death rate is so high, because I'm a professor, I was diagnosed during the pandemic, which actually helped me in the beginning because we were all doing stuff on Zoom and online. I could do that with my chemo treatments, but students hated it. And so I was asked to come back to the campus to teach. So in February, I said, I've been asked to teach classes in August. Am I going to be alive in August? Can I say yes to these classes? And she said, Kelly, let's remain optimistic. That is not an answer. That is not an answer, Dr. Kubalanza. So this was very frustrating. In my attempt to beat this and learn everything and do everything right, even though I've been a psych professor for 23 years and I've lived in LA for 9, I had actually never gone to therapy. So I joined a support group in Los Angeles. And I actually don't recommend this unless you have made all of your dreams and ambitions come true. Because in my support group, it was for anyone with stage 4 cancer. These were the most talented, successful, impressive people. They were zooming in. I could see their walk-in closets and their islands and their backyard pools. I'm zooming in from my studio apartment. One person in my group, she won a silver medal in 2 different Olympics. And now, because I'm in a stage 4 support group, unfortunately, many people, they join the group when they're kind of on their last lines of chemo and they're kind of making end of life decisions. And so with Amy being an Olympian, I'm like, she's had a real legacy, but I don't have a legacy. I have to survive. Well, let me just share with you all. You all are looking at Florida's first female Pizza Hut delivery driver. That is correct. Yep. Up until 1995 in Tallahassee, nobody thought that a woman could deliver large meat 30 minutes or less. You gotta have that. But me and my Mitsubishi Mirage did it. We broke through the pizza glass ceiling. But this cannot be my legacy. This cannot be my legacy. I have to survive. Now, my support group, they love my comedy. In our groups, I'll try out new jokes. I have told them that I'm trying to beat this, and they have supported me. I am so grateful to have them. And on my chemo regimen, it started to work and work well. Tumors started disappearing from my scans. Dr. Kubalanza started calling me a miracle patient. She said she had never seen a response to chemo like this, and she got me an appointment with the UCLA surgeons. They were on a 4-month wait, and she got me ahead of the line. And I just felt like, okay, I believed in myself. I knew I was going to beat this, and here I am. So I meet with the surgeons, and they rejected me for surgery. And it is the most devastating thing that has ever happened to me in my life, to have someone that could save your life look you in the face and say no. But because I joined these online Facebook groups, specifically an organization called Colon Town, because I had read thousands of posts in Colon Town, I found out this is not unusual. Even if you have a miraculous response on chemo, Surgeons turn us stage 4 people down. They believe because it's already spread that the cancer's lurking in our bloodstream and they don't want to take a chance on us. But thanks to Colon Town, people all over the world were talking about one surgeon. His name is Dr. Fong, and he's a true hero for people with colon cancer who it spread to their liver. And he sometimes will say yes when you've been told no by another surgeon. And Dr. Kubalanza got his cell number and got me an appointment with him. He's right here in LA at City of Hope. And so I go in and meet with Dr. Fong, and he said, Kelly, your liver is in bad shape. The only thing we can do for you is to give you a liver pump that will send 100 times the chemo to your liver. You basically need a miracle. It doesn't usually work this way. You need it to completely destroy multiple tumors. But he said, I'm willing to take a chance on you, even though he said, Kelly, it's highly unlikely. And I said, let's do it. Thank you for taking a chance on me. And guess what? The liver pump worked. It destroyed multiple tumors. And Dr. Fong cut off 80% of my liver, taking what was only left in my body, the last 7 tumors. And I thought, I believed in myself. I did this. I'm the miracle patient. I knew this would happen. And so I was able to go on a trip to see my family, to meet my niece for the first time, meet my boyfriend's family, including his mom for the first time. I'm going to get my life back. Dr. Fong has saved my life. This is amazing. And so I come back from vacation and I come in for my scans, and my liver has grown back with new tumors. And so I get some more things done, and my liver comes back with more tumors. And then my transmission on my car goes out. And so I believed that I was the miracle patient. I have stayed positive, but these setbacks really took a toll on me. And for the first time, I wasn't saying I was going to beat it. The idea of buying a new car and making 5 years of payments, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to be able to do this. And so this was a very difficult time. Now, because I was turned down from getting other surgeries, begged radiologist, I begged Dr. Fong to cut off my liver again, but I was rejected. I went back on chemo. I do have something I like to call my stage 4 cancer card. And so stage 4, it sucks, but I have a card that I think gets me out of jams, gets me stuff. A friend offered me a free apartment in Spain. And even though I was down from the recurrences and I was disappointed that I was the typical stage 4 statistic, that my tumors keep coming back and back, I decided I'm going to jump on this opportunity. And I told my current oncologist at City of Hope, I'm going to Spain and you're going to give me a small break from chemo because 12 days isn't enough time. I want an extra week off chemo and I want to go to Spain because I may not be able to do this again. And not only did he give me an extra, he gave me 2 extra weeks off so I could spend a lot of time in Spain. Now, I didn't tell my support group this, but, and let me say this too, please don't put in the chat, I'm very pro-science, so please don't tell me alkaline water and goji berries is going to save me, but please don't do it in the chat. But I did read, I knew I was going to Spain, and there is, outside of Barcelona in Montserrat, there's something called the Black Madonna. And this was a doll that was found in the 700s, and people have gone there for 1,300 years to ask for a miracle from her. So I didn't tell my support group before I went that, but I had a plan. So I made it to Montserrat. I saw the Black Madonna, and I wished for everyone in my stage 4 support group to have more time on this planet, for her to give us more time. And so I sent a picture of it and took a video, lit a candle for us, and people in my support group were so touched. They were like, Kelly, that was so selfless of you to do that for us. And I'm going to let them think that because I said for everyone in the support group. So that includes me, but I want them to think I'm selfless. So I'm going to let them keep thinking that. One good thing about stage 4 cancer, my stage 4 card, is they say we shouldn't go in for dental cleanings. And so because our immune system's so low and it could cause an infection. So I was like, yes, no dental cleanings. But someone in my support group said, Daniel said, no, do not do that. You need to go in for your dental cleanings. You need to tell the universe that you believe in your future. And so I am kind of at a crossroads right now. I'm back on chemo. I just had my 38th round 3 days ago. I showed up to UCLA on Saturday. They had a liver conference showing all the updated research, and I saw that the liver transplant team was there. So I waited through a 4-hour conference in front of many, many people. I asked the liver transplant team to please reconsider how liver transplants are given and to consider people with colon cancer with liver mets, because there was a big study in Paris that showed if you give them cadaver livers, their cancer did not come back. I'm going to be honest with you. The liver transplant team was not thrilled that I did this in front of everyone. And that I cornered the head of the transplant team to say, this could really save our lives. Our survival rate is so low. And in this study, they live 5 years after the transplant. And many of them, the cancer didn't come back. So I will continue to advocate for myself and other people with colon cancer. And I don't know what my future holds, but I will say this. I have now lived 2 years, 9 months, and 20 days. I am a 20%er. A few months ago, I did celebrate my 50th birthday, which I am shouting from the hills. I'm very proud to be 50. And moving forward, I am driving around LA in my new 2024 Subaru Crosstrek. I bought the 6-year extended warranty because I want the universe to know that I am betting on my future. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I was entranced. I'm waiting for more.
I know, I'm so sorry. If I was rushed, I apologize. I'm doing this as an hour and 10, so to turn an hour and 10 into 20. So I do
No,
apologize.
we could have I got so many questions. I got so many questions. But one thing I didn't ask you for beforehand, but since you were a professor and since you were very comfortable getting up in front of a bunch of people and talking, did that make it easier to do comedy?
It did, because for over, when I started, I'd been a professor, many, many years. And so, yeah, how did I make a living? Trying to get 35 people to pay attention to me and listen and not play on their laptops and not look at their phones. I've been
Yeah.
trained to do this. So yes, I do think it helped me at least
Yeah.
try to win over audiences and get them to pay attention to me. I absolutely think it helped me.
Now I'm going to twist a Dr. Mark question here that we have in the chat and ask you, did your students find you funny before you started doing stand-up?
So yeah, I had been told by my students, and I like to show funny videos. And so I definitely, people would say my class is fun. And yes, I did hear from students that I was funny. And I do think psychology is kind of easy to make funny. So yes, I definitely had heard that from students.
Well, um, so I'm fairly familiar with Colon Town. We tried to work with them, but I actually had to get up and present in front of their board one time many years ago. But they didn't want to work with ANCAN. Interestingly enough, you talk about support groups. I don't know how much you know about us, but we started doing virtual support groups in 2010, long before COVID. And in 2015, we were already doing virtual support groups on visual channels.
I
So
love it.
we've been in this virtual support game for a long time. So when you start talking about support, I know the power of what these people are doing for
Yeah.
you, and I know how the peers are helping, and I know how they're all rooting for you. Um, what what was your gut response when you looked at those survival rate? Well, I'll
It's
step back one.
yeah. Yeah.
I'll step back one. I want you, I'm so glad you said, don't consult Dr. Google. Don't
Don't do
consult
it.
Dr.
Don't
Google.
do it.
Don't do it. We tell everybody this. But you did, and you found out this 20% survival rate. So what was your gut response? How did you feel
It was,
about that, Miss
yeah,
Kelly?
no, it was horrifying. And you keep looking and you just keep seeing it. And I cut out something else because there's something that's even worse about the how long live five, because when I first got on there, it said 5%. And to think you have only a 5% chance to live five, I mean, it's hard to even explain. Like my brain couldn't understand it. I mean, some people even may argue that I'm still in denial at, year 2 month, not, because and even being in a support group where I see people sadly die frequently, it's just surreal, and you just can't believe it's happening to you, and that this could actually be your fate, and that when it's that bad, it's horrifying. I mean, it just really is.
I know. And I'm just sort of aghast. Well, I shouldn't say I'm aghast, because we've had a couple of guys who have done 40 plus or minus 40 chemos. But I also know that I mean, we have groups for all kinds of stuff. Like, we don't have a colon group, we do have a pancreatic group. Um, but what I know most about is prostate, and the chemo in prostate is not as tough as the chemo in colorectal. Because I know, I mean, I can't believe that you've done something like Fulferox for
Yeah.
38 times, have you?
Yeah. Yes, it is a very difficult regimen. I mean, it really is. So and that's what gets tough too, because for most of us, because surgeons won't touch us, you just do this every 2 weeks until you die. And it's a horrible regimen. And so quality of life is an issue. And so that's why I have actively, anytime I can get a break, so anytime I can convince a surgeon or a radiologist to burn, so I can get a break from this very grueling regimen. But it's a very difficult regimen. In that,
Is it
that we're on.
Fulferox? Is it
So I
Fulferox?
started with, so Kubalanza gave me both. The first line's called Full Fox, the second line's called Fulfurry. So I did both together. So she
Wow.
hit me, and now I was only able to handle 9 rounds of Full Fox because it destroyed all the
Yeah,
nerves in my hands and my feet. So
yeah.
I have done Fulfurry. I was only able to do, out of the 38, 9 of them did involve Full Fox, but it destroyed my nerves in my
Oh,
hands and
yeah,
feet. So I had to stop it. And I hope sometimes people have to go back to that because it does destroy tumors.
yeah.
Well, it also destroys all the nerves in your hands and feet. So,
So how are you
there's a
doing with
lot of,
you? How are you doing with your neuropathy now?
so I'm very fortunate that my hands came back. My
Yes.
feet,
Yeah,
unfortunately, still have a lot of issues, but
we
I was
do.
very concerned. I'm a professor. I have to grade and teach and type power,
Yeah, yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah.
very hard. So I'm so grateful that at least my hands did come back. So I'm very grateful for that.
Can I pass on a quick tip that's worked for me that might be good for
Yes,
you?
please,
Very
please.
simple, very simple. Vitamin B6. I get it like CVS, Walgreens. And somebody passed it on to me or in the group, suffering from neuropathy. I mean, it hasn't gone away, but I definitely think it's made a difference for me. It's much less. I get it a lot in the winter and I get the old daggers. I get the old daggers in the feet. You know that one? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, I get that.
And
Yep,
it wakes you up in the middle of the night and drives you
it
nuts.
does. Yep,
I
that's when it's the
definitely,
worst for me at night. Yep.
I mean, do check with Dr. What's the name? Kubla Khan?
Well, now
Kubla?
I've switched. That was UCLA. Now I'm at City of Hope, so I have a different oncologist, Dr. Faki, who's great. But
Okay.
yeah, so
Well,
I did switch to City of Hope.
please check with Dr. Faki, but I do think that I can tell you the B6 has helped me and it's helped other people. We deal with a lot of neuropathy issues in our groups. So try it, and it's cheap. Okay, it's cheap,
Okay, I
and it's
appreciate that.
it's
Thank
not
you.
like that soup that they told you to take. Don't worry, all right?
Yes, the
Because
soup.
we hear
Good,
about all
good.
that too. Okay, any coffee enemas
Yes.
yet, or have they told you any anybody? No, nobody.
Oh,
No.
I've heard everything. Yes. So I'm sure a lot of people on here can relate to the miracle cures that people try to give us. I realize people are scared and they want to help us. And so I mean, I find it ridiculous, but I give people the benefit of the doubt. I think people feel helpless that care about us and they're trying to help. So this is their way of trying to help, even though coffee enemas are not going to knock out the 4 tumors on my liver.
Apropos, and I want to come back to those tumors on your liver because I think there may be a quite a synchronistic connection between us on that. But um, talking about coffee enemas, there's a question from my friend Causley in the questions about the teas and juices and soups and baths and incense that go along with the Black Madonna. Do you know anything
Yes.
about?
So
Do you know anything
so
about that?
here's what I did because I want to be very clear. I'm just so pro science, but it was like, hey, I'm in Spain. People have gone there for 1300 years. So from what I saw, um, you make a wish, and if you get it, you have to come back. So I actually sent a postcard to myself from Spain, and I dated it June 26th, 2024. And I wrote on there, if you are still alive on June 26th, 2029, you have to go back to Montserrat and give the Black Madonna a gift. So yeah, you're supposed to bring her if she makes your wish come true. So I'm telling everyone, if I am still here on June 26th, 2029, I give you my word,
Yeah.
I will bring her all those presents that someone mentioned in the chat. I give you my word, I will do that. And I will present those to the Black
Okay.
Madonna if I am still here.
Okay. And do me a favor, include some B6 with that, will you please?
I will give her some B6 too. Yes, or I'll take it on the flight.
Okay. Now let me ask you about this pump that you've got.
Yes.
Is it, do you know who made it? Is it an
Yes, the
Intera?
company is
Is it
called
Intera?
it's the Intera. Yes, I have the Intera
Oh
pump,
my
and I'm glad you
gosh.
asked me this.
Oh my gosh. Go on, you say what you've got to say, and then I will tell you why this is
Well,
an
I
incredibly synchronistic.
well, good because I didn't know this, and if anyone's listening,
Yes,
UCLA doesn't believe in them. And I want to
right,
be very clear that when we end up in medical places, you assume everything is going to be offered to you. But I have now learned there are places that they just simply don't use certain things. And so
right,
UCLA, when I asked them about the pump, they
right,
acted like I was asking for leeches. I mean, they just thought it was, they think it's barbaric. They don't believe in it.
right,
But I went to
right.
City of Hope and look, it did get me, I'm still here thanks to City of Hope.
Yeah.
And this pump has, I was hoping it would get me cured, which it hasn't yet, but I'm back to using it again. So I'm getting the FUDR in it. So
Okay.
yes, I have the Intera pump
You have the
and
Intera pump.
I do.
Now,
I do.
have you been contacted yet by our very good friend David Marshak at Intera?
I don't think so.
Well, you will be.
Okay.
Probably this week. Okay. So here's the connection. David Marshak is on our advisory board. He's a wonderful fellow who concentrates on patient advocacy and is always looking for stand-ups. Okay. Now he's looking for them for Intera rather than foundation medicine, which is where I know him from before he moved to Intera. But he moved to Intera, I think it's about a year and a half ago now. And I would be honored and privileged to connect you, Miss Spillman,
Thank
to
you.
David
I would
Marshak,
love that.
because I'll get
Thank
him
you.
to watch this. And I just can't believe that you're one of David Marshak's people. This is it's
I am.
unbelievable. What's the chances that you
Well,
have in one of his
I know.
Intera pumps?
Well,
Unbelievable.
please, I can't wait to thank him. I'm still here because of him. So thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
it's, the people in his office, and that Intera has a whole story, because the pump got developed because the founder's wife was sick. And then I think it was Medtronic who they were in with, dumped the pump, and the principals raised enough money to buy it from Medtronic, and they run the company themselves now. You don't know this story,
I
I'm
don't know
guessing.
the background at all. Yeah.
Okay, well, David will tell you. But Miss Alexa, what do you think of that? That this is one of David's peeps. We love
Yep.
it. ANCAN
It's
loves it.
awesome.
Yes, our tentacles go everywhere. So I'm so happy. I should, if Alexa was doing the interviewing, I'd be on the phone to David and get him into the room afterwards, even though it's 11:17 on the East Coast right now. Now, um,
Yeah.
I'm very interested to hear about this resistance to debulking in colorectal, um, because I relate it to what's going on in prostate, where in the dark ages, when I was first diagnosed, they would never consider doing surgery or radiation on the primary if you were metastatic, for all the reasons that you
Yeah.
say. It's gone, blah, 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 right. However, that has really changed around in probably the last 5 years. There's always been a couple of places like Mayo and Memorial Sloan Kettering who were willing to do it, but in the past 5 years, we don't usually see surgery for various reasons, but we often see them radiating the prostate for people who are
Yeah.
stage 4. And this has now become really integral into a lot of treatment for stage 4 men. And I'm just, so, when you tell me about Dr. Fong being sort of somewhat revolutionary in his
Yes.
approach, um, I'm just wondering if they're moving more, if more and more doctors in the colorectal space are moving towards considering surgery, or some sort of radiation treatment, if it can be radiated.
So if you look, he truly is a hero. I worship this man, and he publishes a lot, urging other surgeons to take chance. And this is one of my passion things, because like myself, I am the statistic. I was able to get 80% of my liver cut off, and unfortunately it grew back with more tumors. So
Yeah,
80% of the time this happens, right? And that's why they don't want to take
yeah,
chances on us. But here's the thing, even Fong will tell you this. No one knows why 20% it never comes back, right? So my thing is, if you don't know who the 20% is, take a chance on us, because we may be one of the 20%, and maybe more of us would survive. So I do think Dr. Fong is making a difference. And there's a guy named Dr. Lenz at USC. There's a guy out of Rochester, Dr. Hernandez, and I'm going to look into doing this. If someone will give me part of their liver, he does live liver donor transplants to
mm,
us, and they have low recurrence rates. So that we have a couple of these revolutionary people. There's someone in Alabama, which surprised me, that is like this very aggressive liver surgeon. So
yeah,
they're sprinkled around, but we definitely need
around the
more.
place.
Yeah.
I do know that UCSF does a huge amount with the Intera pumps, so I would suspect that
Yes. And
Yeah,
that's grown too. I think it jumped in the last 2 years from 28 places across America to 40.
yeah,
So again, I was disappointed that UCLA is so dismissive of it, but it is, and you're right, UCSF is great. So people are seeing this pump can
yeah.
get us to surgery, that it does
So
work.
I have an idea that you could pitch to Dr. Fong, because we're trying to pitch something similar for a different type of treatment. Um, have you been sequenced? Has your cancer been sequenced?
It has. So I personally do not have any cancer genes at all. So mine, I have what's called crass wild type. So I
Yes.
somehow my cancer's from the wild. We don't know where I got it. So yeah,
Okay.
you mentioned that foundation one, and
Yes, Foundation Medicine.
yeah,
So here, perfect. And David came from Foundation Medicine, by the way. And I've actually got a meeting with Foundation Medicine tomorrow, so maybe I'll mention it to them as well. But the people I'm talking to don't get things done anymore. It ain't like when David was there. Foundation Medicine is part of Roche. Roche owns a company called Flatiron, and Flatiron is a repository for medical records. So they've got extensive medical records. Now, they could run a list of everybody who has had in their database who's had liver surgery. They could then compare it against the people who have been sequenced, and they could look and see what the difference in the results are between the people where it was successful and the people where it was not successful. Are you following me?
yes, this is what we need. This is amazing. This is
Right.
the
I'm not,
research we need.
I mean, I hope I'm not getting too technical here, but we're trying to get them to do it in a different way. But I'd love to talk to, um, I'd love to talk, I'd be happy to talk to Dr. Fong, and I'll call David tomorrow and see if we could do something like that, and then maybe somebody like Fong would lead up a project, but the data is there because there's millions of people in the Flatiron database, and many of those people have now had Foundation Medicine testing. So Foundation Medicine can match the records.
That would be amazing. Please, I know he knows Dr. Fong because he puts in most a good deal of the pumps in the whole country. So yeah, you should have them talk because I this
I
is the kind of stuff that
will.
excites me. Yeah, this is the
I
kind of research
will.
that excites me.
I
Yeah.
will. Sorry, this is an unusual interview. We're going all over the place, and I'm doing more talking than you. That's not supposed to happen. Where in Spain were you exactly?
So my friend gave me a free apartment for 9 nights in a place called Asturias. And in the region, Oviedo was the town. But I also went to Madrid and took a bunch of day trips. I went down to Seville, took a bunch of day trips, and then went over to Barcelona. So I went big and had a blast. I did. So I am grateful that I got the chemo break. I don't know how many of these trips I'll be able to do. So I went all in. I saw as much as I could, and I just had the time of my life.
How was the food?
You know what? It was good. The seafood was fantastic. For
Yes,
colon cancer, we're not supposed to eat fried stuff and a lot of red meat, and they love fried stuff and meats. But I ate a lot of seafood. I did.
it's okay. My lips are sealed. I'll never tell.
Yeah, don't tell my uncle.
It's you're safe. You're safe on here. Now, there is a script writer friend of ours who says that you're totally inspirational in the chat
Oh, thank you
window.
for saying that. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
And Dr. Mark has another question, and it's a good one. He says, do you think the response to your comedy is different between um, people with cancer and those who don't have cancer?
So thank you for asking this because I'm going to be upfront with you all. I was just in LA doing regular comedy clubs and I would do cancer jokes and they would hit and it would make me so happy because I'm like, if you can make cancer funny. And then I realized maybe when people are coming after work or on a Tinder date, maybe I don't want 10 minutes of stage 4 cancer. So I decided, Kelly, why don't you put a show together? And so at least when people are walking into the show, they know. My concern was if people know it's a show about cancer, that they're going to think it's a bummer and it's not going to be funny. And so I want to surprise people, but I decided maybe it wasn't the nice thing for me to do, to bum people out. But again, I would make them laugh. So it was such a win. So I feel like some of these jokes, uh, everyone laughs at. And I will say this, every time I'm at a traditional comedy club, someone comes up to me and says, do you have a video I can send my mom or my sister or my friends? So I know people, we all know people with cancer, and this isn't something that you do usually hear jokes about, but and so I do feel like maybe that's made a difference too. And at least, and I'll to Colin Town, I'll send videos and people are like, thank you for making me laugh. So I mean, I definitely want to make people with cancer laugh, but I find most people like myself in the beginning know nothing about cancer. So part like the soup stuff, like I'm trying to also educate people through humor that giving us soup recipes is not the best idea, and so but yeah, so right now I've decided to let people know the jokes are going to be about cancer, and then hopefully they'll come to the show.
Well, um, I don't know whether it's funny or touching or a mixture of both, but you are definitely entrancing, Miss
Oh,
Kelly.
thank you.
I will say that. Um, another another question that I have, because you mentioned your boyfriend a couple of times and being able to travel to see his family and this, that, and the other. How do you feel relationships have changed for you since you were diagnosed with cancer?
That is a good question. Number one, I um I was a narcissistic comedian. I moved out, I left my family on the East Coast to move out to LA to try to make it. I probably wasn't the best sister. And my family, we've really gotten close due to this. And I have been blown away by the generosity of people. And one thing, and I know from my support group too, this is not unusual. People will kind of surprise you. People that you maybe thought you were close to. There's plenty of people who have not spoken to me during this 3 years that I thought we were pretty close. Again, I don't hold grudges because I think a lot of people don't know what to say, especially because I was essentially given a death sentence. But in general, I've been blown away. I've always been embarrassed because I was always independent. And so people, offer you a free apartment in Spain. And part of me wants to be like, oh, I can't do that, but I've learned to say yes. If people offer me things, I use my stage 4 card, and I've learned to say thank you and accept things. But you do kind of find out who your close friends are. But one thing that's been hugely surprising is people that I really hadn't kept up with, if I'm being honest, have really been incredibly supportive. Even sometimes maybe a person I met once, like at a comedy show 8 years ago, have been just incredibly generous and checking in on me. And so overall, I realized what a big village I have, and how lucky I am to have such a strong support system.
And what about your personal I mean, how does it impact your personal relationships? I mean,
Yeah,
is it hanging over you all the time,
it is
or is
it
it?
is. I do worry. My boyfriend has been incredibly supportive. He comes to every chemo with me. I don't like what it's done to my appearance. And he tells me every day I'm beautiful, despite what chemo has done to me. Um, I worry he doesn't sometimes understand the
Yeah,
severity, and that
yeah,
I am facing a death sentence.
yeah.
He says he does get it. Um, but I do worry about that. I do worry, what I do think things have been unfair for him. We had only started dating a few months before the pandemic, and LA shut down completely. So our relationship has been pandemic. Kelly has stage 4 cancer, and he has stuck by me for 5 years, but that's a
That's
lot,
good.
and so I am very, very lucky. I do know a lot of people whose partners left them. It's horrible. And so this is another area where I have just been incredibly lucky. I do worry that I'm not always the best girlfriend. But I try my best to be as supportive as I can, but I do think he has probably put a lot more in the relationship than I've been able to, during this time. So again,
Well,
I'm very
he
grateful of
might
that.
not agree with you, I suspect, but
Probably
listen,
wouldn't.
yes, I know, but just you tell him that here at ANCAN, because you believe in support groups, we do have a stage 3 and stage 4 care partners support group for any care partners with stage 3 who are looking after people with stage 3 or stage 4, and we would welcome him to join us, and he can find it. It's the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and we would love to see him come. You're not allowed to come in, by the
Okay, I
way,
won't come, but I will definitely
because
tell him.
it's got to be a safe space, so he's got
Of
to be able to.
course.
Yes, and it's a Chinese wall there that they can't go, they can't cross. What happens in the room stays in the room, right?
Of
So
course.
anyway, now I think our time is up, which is a great pity. I did want to mention that I know you have a GoFundMe page. God bless you. And so people can find your GoFundMe page under Kelly Spillman.
Oh, I didn't even know that was still open. So thank you for saying
I
that.
think it
You realize,
is. I think it is.
okay, well, thank
It
you.
may
That's
not
so
be.
nice.
Yes, but I know it is. Well, we're all asking for money here. Don't forget the tip jar, everybody. I have to say that. So, but support for Miss Kelly is also a good use of your
Oh,
money as well.
well,
And
thank you.
the time is up. You don't go away because we're gonna have a
Okay,
little get together afterwards in this room.
sounds good.
And I guess thank you everybody for listening. Fantastic. Miss Brianna, you're back. And we'll see everybody in a few. Okay.